And joining us now here in studio, Michael Stadtlander, chef at Eigensen Farm, and we're very delighted to have you in that chair tonight. How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Some backgrounder for starters for some people, for the two people watching who may not know about your background.
Okay.
You came here 30 years ago, emigrating from Europe, making a name for yourself as one of the best chefs anywhere. But a decade later, you leave this big city for rural Ontario. Mm-hmm. How come?
Well, I mean, it was always on my agenda to come to Canada, start reading about it and seeing National Film Board films and so on. And what struck me was the natural beauty of Canada. So, you know, you have to go, I think, through this filter and this funnel, Toronto or any other big cities, to go to the country, you know. So, like, for working about 13 years in various places in Toronto and also in British Columbia, I knew it was time for me to go. I did all my things, I did all my studies. I studied with Japanese farmers in Japan, and I knew what I wanted to do, and the time was just right.
And it was in rural Ontario where you wanted to do it?
Actually, originally I thought it was going to be BC, but spending a winter there with all that rain and constantly, and you really recognize that you know, I missed Ontario.
So what are the core ideas that are animating what you're doing right now in rural Ontario?
Mm-hmm. Well, what we're doing here is I have a farm and 100 acres, and I grow and raise my own livestock like ducks, chicken, geese, pigs, sheep, and cows.
And how far north of the city are you?
It's about 200 k's, not quite,
okay.
But yeah.
And it's working out?
Yes, I'm working out, and also I cook like 2 nights a week on my farm, and I also have a little restaurant in Singhampton. So,
have you always been a champion of this kind of local food movement?
Oh yeah. I mean, me and Jamie Kennedy, like in 1988, we founded this organization called Knife and Forks. What's a combination of the chef and the organic farmer. And I think we are the ones really who started like the first real kind of farmers market in Toronto. So yeah, and it's the connection between chefs and farmers.
Now the 100-mile diet is of course the rage these days. And you know, I want to know whether you've seen any evidence that people are really changing the way they cook, the way they eat, the way they shop, out of their respect for this notion that we should try to get everything we eat within 100 miles of where we live.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, the chef has this position. He is like the connecting link between the public and the farmers. And today, chefs, if you can ask any chefs, like in the greater Ontario, Toronto area, he will say, I would love to work with the small artisan farmer who grows organic. That's like the best. And then, of course, you know, local. And then the next step of that is regional. And I mean, it's very important that you work with this circle of farmers with who you work, and you present through your food, through the public. And then again, the public asks, oh, where does this come from? Where does this, how this tastes so great? And then, you know, like now there is butchers, small-scale butchers, small-scale, of course, you know, all of Toronto is now full of farmers market. And this is part of a culture what I think chefs have established, starting to help to establish.
What's the expression? From the gate to the plate? Is that what they
Correct,
say?
Yeah.
Yeah? It sounds very old-fashioned in a way. Everything old is new again?
Well, you know, like, I mean, in the beginning it was like that, right? I mean, farmers were like there to feed the people, and sometimes we lost that a little bit. I felt like, you know, when I started in the beginning, it was like ordering the strip loin, and you have no idea where it came from, or you get bags of carrots, no idea where it comes from. It changes everything once you actually go to the farm. Now the chefs are going to see the farmers at their farm, and they are actually telling, well, we'd like to have Cinderella squash. We had that in France, or like, you know, so it's a really like we're actually extending our kind of variety of ingredients what we had like maybe like 100 years ago. Like before, it was cabbage and potato was all about survival, but now it's you know, food is a big part now of our culture, and you know.
Is there anything we grow here that we do better than anybody else in the world?
Well, maple syrup, I guess, is one, and you know, we grow. I mean, it's really something. But when it comes to our climate, like you know, it's like Ontario climate is kind of, it's cold, but when it gets warm, there's certain, what we can grow here. I think nowhere else can, for sure, not can grow it better. You know.
I think it's a few years ago already that you convened this organization called Canadian Chefs Congress.
Yes.
And I guess some of the initial reaction was, we thought all you chefs hated each other, and you were all, you know, it's very dog eat dog out there and very competitive, and yet you've come together in this Congress.
Yeah.
What's it for?
Well, you know, first thing, like these kind of competition, there is this competition to a degree, you know, but it's just like a competition, like runners go running, but then once the race is over, they hug each other, you know, and they're all good. But the thing is, I formed this organization with the idea of, this is a very big country, but actually it's very small when it comes to that kind of community of chefs who are really caring about food and so on. And so our idea is really, our mandate is to connect the chefs with the land and with the farmers, and stand in solidarity with the foragers and fishermen and farmers, and then develop a more stronger Canadian food culture.
The impression I get, though, and you tell me if this is wrong, the impression I get, though, is that the people who are the real foodies, the real connoisseurs, they, you know, they can and are prepared to pay what is perceived to be a higher price for that which you do.
Yeah.
Is what you do really targeted at kind of the upper to upper middle class of society, and it's not really for everybody?
You know, this is actually a good point, what you're saying, you know. I think to a degree it is when it comes to, like, you know, like these kind of boutique kind of gardenings and farms, but also there's organic farms who are big and so on. And actually it is really my belief that we should start, like in school, kids having gardens. Kids are starting to cook. Like when you have a child tasting a great carrots when they're very young, they will always remember that. And then, you know, like they will go back to that tasteless, watery stuff, will never go back to it. I think it's part of education once we will start that. You know, I actually having a program this winter starting. I built an old German bake oven. So I'm inviting all different schools from my area. And I want to get the kids back, bring some ingredients from, it's a farming rural community, right? So they have ingredients. So we're going to cook and bake together. So yeah, I think it's again, you know, like you don't have to be super rich or like middle class really to eat well. Actually, it's just, I think, partly education.
Does it concern you that there are probably tens, if not hundreds of thousands of children who will grow up in this city and never see a farm?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That is crazy, eh?
It's totally nuts. They think like the milk comes from you know, some machine and it's out of the bottles and stuff. It's, yeah, and eggs are made in factories. We're quite disconnected with that. So it's, you know.
Let's spend our last few minutes here before we broaden out and have our debate on the chef's role. The chef's role obviously goes far beyond food preparation. How do you see it?
Well, again, you know, going back to the Chefs Congress, it's really like, you know, for example, our next Chef Congress is going to be in Nova Scotia, and our agenda is the contribution and celebrating the Acadian food culture and the contribution what Acadian brought to our food culture. And the other thing is the revitalization of the small family farm. Because I think it's really my belief that there's a lot of young farmers out there who just need like a little bit of kind of that support and that kind of allies kind of feeling from a cooking community, from chefs. And so, I mean, for me, that was really the idea with Foodstock, what just happened about 2 weeks ago.
Tell people about, for those who might have missed it, tell them what that was about.
What it really was a gathering of, more or less, it was a 100-course menu at one of the farms, the Van der Zack farm and the Bill French and Leslie French farm next door. And we had 28,000 people there. And so it was really like almost like a religious experience. I mean, none of our chefs have ever experienced anything like that. And I think we can easily say this was probably the biggest protest gastronomic event in world history.
It was a protest slash gastronomic event.
Against, like with your showing up and your being there, you showed your disapproval of the mega quarry.